and welcome back to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast to you from Ratchamakon, University of Technology, Peranakan, and it will come to you in two parts. For the first part, we will introduce a certain topic about being an American here living in Thailand. It could be about food, travel, or culture. We'll then take a break, and in the second part of our program, we will get into examples and more specifics. All right, let's get to the program. Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am an English teacher here at Ratchamakon, University of Technology, Peranakan, and obviously I am from America. And when I say America, I mean the United States. Some people in other parts of America, like Canada or Mexico or South America, get upset when people from the US say America, that we're Americans. People from the US. We're not trying to be offensive or arrogant. The name of our country is the United States of America, so we just shorten it to America. And for the sake of this program, it sounds better to say an American. What else am I going to say for the title? A U.S. citizen in Thailand? That sounds weird. So an American in Thailand sounds better. So I do usually try to say U.S. so that, first of all, it doesn't bother anyone. Second of all, you know where in the Americas I'm actually from, that I'm from the U.S. But occasionally I will say America or American. When I say that, I mean the U.S. I try not to, but sometimes I will say that. Okay, so for this week's episode, we have a very strange topic that we're going to do. It seems like a weird thing to do an entire program about. We are going to talk about ketchup, its evolution, and its role in Thai cuisine. Cuisine means like the food that you eat. So, first of all, in the first part of our program, we're going to discuss kind of the differences in how we use ketchup. What it's used on, what it's used for, between Thailand and the U.S. And then in the second part, we're going to talk about the history of ketchup. And there's a reason we're going to talk about that. And that's what's going to make this episode quite interesting, I think. So make sure you stick around for the second half of our program. Right, but first, let's talk about the differences between America and Thailand, the U.S. and Thailand, and our use of ketchup. All right, so even though it is very much viewed as a U.S. condiment or an American condiment, it's actually used more here in Thailand. First of all, the word condiment, what does that mean? A condiment is like extra stuff that you put on something. Ketchup, mustard, can be thinner type of sauce like soy sauce, or I would probably consider a condiment. Sometimes people might consider that more just a kind of normal ingredient rather than a condiment. But I would consider it a condiment. Ketchup, mustard. We have something called relish in the U.S. You can find it here at some stores, but it's not very popular, not very common. It's basically pickled cucumbers, which are ground up, and it has some other flavors in there as well. We call that relish. Those are all condiments. So it's something that you put on something else to add flavor. Condiment. All right, and so it's actually used more here in Thailand than it is in the U.S., even though it does come from the U.S. You'll notice most of the bottles you buy here, it says Heinz on them. Yes, Heinz is a company in Pennsylvania. I believe they're located in Pittsburgh. They may not be right in the city. They may be right in the city. I'm not sure, but they're in that area. That's the western part of Pennsylvania. And in case you don't know where Pennsylvania is, it's the northeastern part of the United States. It's quite close to New York. It's just south of New York. Okay, so that is where this comes from. So it is a little surprising that it's more popular here than in the U.S. It's not shocking. I think it might also be more popular in Canada than it is in the U.S. because they like to have like tomato-flavored potato chips, which isn't really a thing that we do in the U.S. There are so many different flavors. I'm sure you can find ketchup. I said tomato-flavored. It's ketchup-flavored. I'm sure you can find ketchup-flavored potato chips in the U.S., but not so easily, whereas they're very popular in Canada. So ketchup may be more popular there as well. So it's not shocking that ketchup is more popular in other countries, but it is a little strange, right? A little strange that it would be less popular in the country that it comes from. Now, why do I say it's less popular? Because we do use it a lot. We use plenty of ketchup in the U.S., but it's mostly used just on French fries and burgers. Certainly some people will use it on other things. In the U.S., we have such a different mix of cultures, and so those people bring their foods, and so we have all kinds of different foods and food combinations, and people will put things together that you wouldn't normally think to put together. And so people will use ketchup on plenty of other things. But mainly, it's French fries and burgers. That's where you put your ketchup. Here in Thailand, you also put French fries on your ketchup and burgers, although burgers are a little less popular here. But a lot of people, certainly not everyone, but a lot of people will also put ketchup on pizza and spaghetti. I can tell you, and it makes me laugh because I always kind of pick on some of my Thai friends about this. I can tell you that for people from the U.S., putting ketchup on your pizza or spaghetti just seems weird to us. It's just weird. Pizza, not quite so much. I definitely know some people in the U.S. that will put ketchup on their pizza, but they will get strange looks for doing that. Putting it on spaghetti, no. That is not the type of tomato sauce you want on spaghetti. That's way too sweet. That does not go. And so because of these other uses, Thai people use ketchup on more things than most Americans do. I mean, it's not completely that way. For example, if you order French fries here in Thailand, they usually bring it out with ketchup and mayonnaise. And so maybe some of you prefer the mayonnaise, whereas most people in the U.S. don't put mayonnaise on their French fries. That is not a East-West thing, like Eastern cultures like Asia versus Western cultures. No. There are a lot of Western cultures that do actually like to put mayonnaise on their French fries. And some Americans will do that as well. Some U.S. people will do that as well. It's not unheard of in the U.S. Plenty of people will put mayonnaise on their French fries. It's just not as common. It's just not that common. Whereas here in Thailand, ketchup and mayonnaise may be equally as common. So my point about that is it's not like Thailand is using ketchup 1,000 times more than people from the U.S. because you may actually be using it less here in Thailand on your French fries than we use it in the U.S. And of course, a lot of people don't put ketchup on their French fries either. They just eat their French fries the way they come out. So it's not universal that all Thai people are using a lot more ketchup than people from the U.S. No, I'm just saying that in general, the types of foods that you will put ketchup on is more broad here in Thailand. So you'll put ketchup on more things here. And the reason I find that interesting is because of the history of ketchup. So in the second half, we will take a look at that. We will take a look at the history of ketchup and why this is so interesting. All right, so we will get to that in just a moment. Let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so we were talking about the role of ketchup in Thai cuisine versus American cuisine. And I was mentioning in the first half that I think it's interesting that it seems to be more popular here in Thailand than it is even in the U.S., which is where it comes from. It comes from the U.S. But the history behind it is very interesting. And you will see why it makes it so interesting that it's popular here in Thailand. Okay? So this history is a little bit crazy. And I'll tell you why it's crazy. Because in the past, now when I say in the past, it's the recent past for ketchup, because ketchup has been around for hundreds of years. But it's kind of the distant past when you think of modern times. So we're talking about more than like 150 years ago, at least more than 130 or 40 years ago, but it may be more than 150 by now. So 150 years ago, something like that, in the past, actually no, it would be before then. No. I'm thinking of the second ingredient they added. So going even further back, so probably more like 200 years, 250 years ago. I'm not even sure of the date on it exactly. But if you go back a long time, ketchup was never even made with tomatoes. I know. That's the main ingredient. How is it ketchup if it's not made with tomatoes? It was not. It also never had vinegar in it. And that's the ingredient that it was added, I think, about 150 years ago. So it never had the vinegar in it. That was added to help as a preservative, because as people were selling the ketchup without the vinegar in it, it would spoil too quickly. Because it's just a vegetable, so it's not going to last very long. So it would spoil too quickly. So it's very interesting when you think about that. The whole very tomato, the tanginess which comes from the vinegar and the tomato, that whole tangy tomato flavor is entirely new. Now, when I say new, I mean it's been around, been that way for 150 years, but it's an entirely new evolution in ketchup. And that modern ketchup, again, modern, 150 years ago, but relatively modern since ketchup is so old. So that modern ketchup is American, from the U.S. as we think about it. So if you think ketchup is American, you're right, at least in its modern form. That is American. The whole adding the vinegar to help make it more stable and all of that was done. The same company that still produces it now. When you go and you see that bottle that says Heinz on it, that's the company that made it. That's the same company. Been around for that long, yes. Heinz and they're an American company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay. But the original ketchup was imported from Europe. And that had very different ingredients. For example, it was originally made from mushrooms. Yes. Ketchup was made with mushrooms, not tomatoes. And it first showed up in Britain in 1682. And that's where it eventually went to America from there. So it originally showed up in Britain in 1682. And it was made from mushrooms. Really weird to think about it, isn't it? So it's still going to be like this sauce, like this pasty kind of sauce. So it's this pasty sauce, but it's made of mushrooms. But here's the thing. It was still called ketchup. It's the same. And they used to they used to change up the ingredients quite a lot. And that's why when they altered the ingredients again and went to tomatoes, they still just called it ketchup. Because it's basically just a sauce, whatever sauce you want it to be. Put this in it, put that in it, put this in it, whatever sauce you want it to be, ketchup. And that's why they kept the name, even though they kept changing what the sauce was made of. So now, the question then is, where did the British get it from? All right, so that's where we get a little tricky here. And I'll talk a little bit about this. I don't want to get into too much detail. It's already getting to be a kind of long program talking about ketchup, but I will talk a little bit about the debate here, because there's some debate about this, where it came from. The most common belief, and even if you Google it, it will come up, this is what comes up under the AI version. Now, AI is not always right. You need to be careful when you're using that. But this is the most common version of where it came from, is that it came from trades with China. Even the name is very similar to the name of a sauce from China called ketchup. 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 Yes, that seems right. And I believe that probably is the correct answer. But I'm not a historian. And even historians debate this. So that could be wrong. So I do want to tell you at least that there's some debate. And it's important to tell you that because I do want to be honest with you. Because when we explain a little bit more about this ketchup, you'll find out why this is so interesting. That it comes from that. And so it's possible that it's wrong, which would kind of destroy the whole thing that makes this fun and interesting. But I do think it is from that. So I do think this is the case. But again, I will tell you that there is at least a theory that the word, if not the sauce, came from Malaysia. There's another word in Malaysia which also refers to another type of sort of soy sauce, which is similar to the word ketchup. So there's a theory that it came from there. There's also another theory claiming that at least the word has European and Arabic roots, which basically just means sauce. And I can understand why you might think it comes from that because they didn't care what the ingredients were. So just sauce, because they changed the ingredients so much. Okay? So I can understand that. That makes sense. However, I will tell you that having read a little bit about that theory, even though there's some professors that agree with this and that believe it, I'm skeptical because the words are not very similar. It's very dissimilar words. Now, words do change over time. We're talking about hundreds of years ago. It's possible. It's possible it came from that. But I personally think the Chinese theory seems the most correct, and that is actually what most people believe. And that's why it gets interesting. Because if we go with the Chinese theory, which again I think is correct, so I don't think we're going with it just because it makes the story more fun. I think we're going with it because it's right. So if the Chinese theory is correct, that's why it's so interesting. Because ketchup in Chinese is a form of fish sauce. And that's why I find this so interesting, because fish sauce is so common here in Thailand. So it seems incredible to me that ketchup basically started here, or at least broadly in this region. Okay, it's China, not Thailand, so it's a little north of here. But it's the same kind of type of food that we might have here, fish sauce. So it's basically a regional thing for East Asia. So when I say it started here, I don't necessarily mean Thailand exactly, but still, it started in this region. So it just seems incredible that ketchup started here as fish sauce, which is so popular here, and then after going through all of this evolution in Britain and in the US, it has come back here in a totally different form. It's nothing like its original form, and it's so popular. It's more popular here than maybe it is in the US, like we talked about in the first part of the program. So that's why I think this is such an interesting story, with ketchup being more popular here than the US. And again, you could debate that because, like we said, there's some things, like maybe on French fries, maybe the US uses it more, and that's the most common thing you use it on. So I don't know, maybe people from the US do use it more than people from Thailand. But people from Thailand certainly seem to put it on more things, and a wider variety of things. For example, when you order pizza from the pizza company, they usually give you pizza sauce and ketchup packets with it. You order pizza in the U.S., they're not giving you packets of ketchup with it. We have packets of ketchup. They give you that a lot most of the times when you order fries, French fries. They're not giving you ketchup packets when you order pizza. Doesn't happen in the U.S. So that's why this is so interesting, is that ketchup was originally fish sauce. So I find it very interesting that both are so popular here in Thailand, even though ketchup went on this wild, crazy evolution, starting as fish sauce, then mushroom sauce, then tomato sauce, and never had that tang until the Heinz company then added the vinegar in there, and then it comes back here to Thailand, and people love it. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, so that's the very interesting story of ketchup and Thailand. That was kind of a little bit of a funny episode to do a whole episode about ketchup. But I think Thailand and East Asia in general, since ketchup comes from China, very interesting evolution of that food. All right, so that is it for our program today. So thank you for joining us for today's episode of An American in Thailand. Let me reach out to any young people out there who are going to be going to university soon and ask them to consider our wonderful little university here, RMUTP, Ratchamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan. Okay, please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.